Hello everybody, welcome back to the next episode of All the Mods 8, and today is the day that we get into Mekanism. Now, Mekanism is probably one of the largest mods in the entire mod pack. I was doing a little bit of pre-planning ahead, and our ultimate goal with Mekanism is to basically do this entire quest line. We basically have to get to the point where we can do the end game purpose of Mekanism, which is to make antimatter. Antimatter is the thing that we're going to need for a lot of parts for the ATM Star. So we're going to have to get quite a bit of antimatter, and this stuff is very, very hard to get. Mekanism as a whole offers a whole bunch of other stuff as well, including power generation, ways to store and send power, all sorts of different machines that can do various tasks like smelting, crushing, kind of like the pulverizer, and they also have a bunch of just small quality of life things too. They have a digital miner, which lets you just plop it down, and this will mine in a large area. They have custom teleporting, they have jetpacks, some of the best tools in the entire game, some of the best armor in the entire game. Now, I've played through Mekanism before quite a few times actually, so I'm quite familiar with how we're going to go about getting to the end and getting to make antimatter. This could be quite a challenging process if you haven't done it before. I'm going to do my best to essentially speed run the Mekanism mod, but I want to do it tutorial style and kind of explain what you're going to need to do as we go along. And Mekanism is one of those mods that once you have it, and it's super easy to make use of to help with a whole bunch of other mods as well. Mekanism has some of the best power generation in the game, and it also can help with processing resources. Now, there are two main resources that Mekanism makes use of. Steel, which you can see here, is part of the quest line to get into all this other stuff like cabling, and osmium. Osmium is used for crafting a lot of different machines, and osmium is used in some of the basic raw components that Mekanism uses an absolute ton of. So we're going to need a lot of these parts, which means we're going to need a lot of osmium. But I think right now, because we've had those osmium seeds going for a while, we actually have probably more than we're going to need. I also do have some steel coming in. I have 2.1 thousand steel. Now, normally, the way you would normally get steel in the Mekanism mod, so one way you can make steel, which I think is the way that I ended up getting some steel to begin with, was just doing this. You get some iron dust, which you can get from just crushing it down with a hammer, adding some coal, which is kind of expensive, with a hammer, and that gives you 1 steel dust. Now, the way you normally do with Mekanism to get steel is you use the metallurgic infuser machine. Basically what you do is the same kind of premise as what this recipe is, but you just put the carbon or the coal or charcoal into the machine as the kind of the catalyst, and then you put some enriched iron in. Now, the enriched iron is made the exact same way as the steel. You put an iron ingot in with some more carbon and you get an enriched iron. Once you have the steel dust, you can then go ahead and smelt it into steel directly. I don't think there's any ways you can double it or anything. I think that's just the way it is. So that is the way you would normally go about getting steel. And we would have to do that if we were going to be starting off with no steel. However, I have gone ahead and made some steel seeds. I have some steel seeds set up here for Mystical Agriculture. Now, this is probably the boring way to do it. The other way is probably the more intended way, but the thing is the amount of steel that I get from Mystical for effectively doing nothing is absolutely absurd. Like, I'm already up to 2.2 thousand steel, and I could add more here if I wanted to, but just in the interest of saving space for other things we could possibly need, I decided just to do one row 3 by 9 here, 27 seeds, and that should hopefully be enough steel for all we're going to need. You would have to do it the other way if you didn't have access to those seeds, but because I did, I decided to do it that way. If you look at the steel seed recipe, they're pretty cheap. It's just some Imperium and 4 steel to make 1 prosperity, or to make 1 steel. I crafted a few of these up front because I had some extra steel lying around. Let's go ahead and get this done. The heat generator is the starting way to make power in Mekanism. We're going to basically completely bypass this, but we are going to have to make it at least once. So let's just go ahead and make the heat generator. Normally you would use lava. You could surround this thing with lava, and it would actually give you some starting power to run your machines. Next up, this is the metallurgic infuser. Now, I will actually put this one on autocraft, I believe, because we might need a couple of these down the road. I do have one already from earlier. I think that's how I got the steel in the first place, but we might as well go ahead and put this on autocraft just because. But yeah, let's go ahead and make 2 of these. There we go. So 1, 2. Now we have 3 metallurgic infusers, which will finish the quest for us here and unlock the enrichment chamber. Now we have actually made the enrichment chamber before. I will go ahead and put it in autocraft anyway. But the enrichment chamber it uses kind of the same types of resources. It does use some of these basic control circuits though. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on autocraft. We don't have the basic control circuits on autocraft yet because you make them inside of the metallurgic infuser. Now we unlocked our steel quest and we have unlocked the infused alloy. Now there are some things that we have completed along the way just by crafting certain things. So we'll have them already unlocked as we get to them, and they'll give us some basic rewards when we do get there. I have planned out this back area here, and what I'm actually going to be putting in here is called an induction matrix. That is Mekanism's way of storing a lot of power, because we're going to need to store a lot of power for producing antimatter. So I want our generators, our reactors going at all times, filling this induction matrix. So that's what we're going to want to get to as soon as we can, but that's going to be a little further down the road here. We're not quite at that point yet. Metallurgic infuser is something we're going to want to use at all points in this mod, and we're going to want many of them running at the same time, because within the metallurgic infuser there are many different types of materials that we can use as catalysts to create items. And the problem with once you've put in some catalyst, so for example, if I come in here and put some redstone, you see that we have a little bit of redstone here, and it can't make anything other than redstone items until all of this redstone is gone. So if there's even a little bit left in this machine, it won't be able to do anything with it. And the way we can get around this is by just manually dumping it. So we can press the little dump button, and that'll get rid of all of the stuff inside of here. However, we don't necessarily want to waste resources, and we don't want to come in here and manually dump things every time we want to make new items. So the way around that is to have basically a metallurgic infuser set up for every single item that we're going to be infusing in here. Sometimes even multiples for one, like redstone is a very common one. So we might actually want 2 metallurgic infusers for redstone alone. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put down a couple of metallurgic infusers side by side. How I usually set it up is I have 1 for coal, 2 for redstone, 1 for diamond, and 1 for refined obsidian. So we're going to need 5 total. There we go. Okay, we have all 5 metallurgic infusers side by side. Now, in order to actually get these resources, the way it actually has to fill itself is a little bit different, because not only do we have to have an input slot for the items we want to transform, we also have to have a way to input the material in here to infuse it with. If we come to the side configuration screen, it'll actually show us that the extra yellow, this tab is not on most machines, and whatever the extra is, that's where the material in here is going to be coming in. You can see the yellow border along this slot here. So we want this extra yellow set to something that we can input from. Now, I think the best way that we can go about doing that is probably, again, using laser IO, because laser IO can send power and items in from one face. I'm going to bring the refined storage cable right to the middle here, and then I will bring it over to the back just like this. I'll probably bring it in here, and that is an easy way to connect up. What I do know is we're going to need to have importers on all the bottoms of these, because everything that we make out of these, we're going to want to come back into our storage system. Okay, so they're all imported, connected up. All we have to do is then hook these in like so, and that should be fine. Now, we want to take this top slot here, and this is effectively where we're going to have the items that we're going to be auto-crafting, or we're going to be crafting. They're going to come in from the top, and we actually need to use crafters for that. We're going to go ahead and use some diamond crafters here, because I think those are going to be totally fast enough as well. And we just have to come into the back here, make sure that they're hooked up like so, and we are all set. Okay, so this looks good. Now I can just fill in this, because I can also just teleport to the back like this. That way I can kind of get the front visualized a little bit better. Let's go ahead and get some laser IO stuff out. We have some nodes already, which is good. So we can just put 1 node behind each, and we're going to be working on we can see that we're facing south. So we're going to be using the south side of these laser nodes. I do have my laser card holder here. If I come in here, we have all of our stuff ready to go, and we want to insert items and energy. And we want to do this on all of the south sides of these nodes, just like that. Okay, so they are all set up to start sending power, and items. Okay, so our next step is now we want to actually filter the items that we're going to be sending through here. We want to add a item filter so we can tell it to only send a certain thing. Now, if we come in here, I just added a basic filter. I'm going to add a basic filter to all of the item cards, or to all of the, all the item cards here, just like so. Okay, so all these have item filters ready to go. And this is the on whitelist. So right now, whatever I have whitelisted in here, that's the only thing that it will send to this machine. I'm going to go ahead and set the side config to, we're going to clear for now. And the back is where we're going to be inputting our extra, like this. I'm going to go ahead and do this on all of them. So now we're all set to receive inputs from the back for this catalyst. Now we have to come in here and set the filters. The first one I'm going to have be carbon. So if we come in here, we can find the enriched carbon from Mekanism. Now this isn't coal directly, but how you actually make the enriched versions of these materials is by sending them through an enrichment chamber. If we come to the list of all the things that provide carbon to these machines, we can see that an enriched carbon provides 80 millibuckets of carbon, whereas a normal coal only gives 10. We're effectively only using one coal to create an enriched carbon, but we're getting 8 times the amount of carbon usage in these machines. So what we're going to want to do is before we send items in here, like coal, we're going to want to enrich them first. And that's going to be a setup probably on the other side where we're going to be enriching all these items first. And we're probably going to want an enrichment chamber set up for each different material because we don't want any backlog. We don't want any holdups on any of these materials. We want it nice and smooth always. So we're going to have to go ahead and set the exact same setup over there, but with enrichment chambers. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and set the filters here. There we go. I can just select and drag the enriched versions in here as the filters. We're going to have 2 for redstone. We're going to have this back one, this 4th one for enriched diamond. And the last one is going to be for enriched obsidian. We have to now send these. We have to basically find a way to get these items out of our system and put into these machines. Now, I think the way I'm going to actually do this is by using a drawer controller. We're going to set a storage controller underneath this middle node. Now, that means that the downside is what we're going to need to extract items from. This is going to basically, and I'm actually going to go ahead and this is going to be the thing that needs to be sped up. So we're going to go ahead and find that downside item card, and we want to add node overclockers here. So if I come into the laser IO, we should have some card overclockers and node overclockers. I think we can also put in some of these, and that'll just make it very, very fast. We come in here down, and we put 4 node overclockers. We can do 64 items per tick, which is absolutely absurd. That's very fast. That's 20 stacks of items per second, which is very, very fast. But even then, we can also go ahead and just add in some node overclockers to the actual machine itself, and I think this will even further speed this up a ridiculous amount. And because these don't actually require any power, there's no reason to not speed them all up. Now that we have the drawer controller set here, we have to provide drawers for all the different items that we're going to be keeping in here. And I think we're going to just do that by using a framed drawer. I mean, they don't have to be pretty, but effectively we can just do one on each side here. These llamas just, how did they spawn in here? It's not even possible. Where did you come from? Weirdos. I actually just realized we only need 1 drawer. We don't even need 2 drawers, so that's fine. We just need one for carbon, redstone, coal, or carbon, redstone, diamond, and obsidian, and all 4 of them will fit in 1 drawer, which is actually really good. That's going to keep the setup nice and small. And now we just need to have a exporter on that drawer itself, which I think will be all we need, like so. And then we just have to set these to export the items we want. But this is about all we can get done over here until we finish the enrichment section. So let's go ahead and we'll just put this on pause just for a sec. We're going to do the exact same setup over here. And this is actually going to be way easier because the enrichment chambers are actually quite easy to use. They're not the same as, like, there's no extra inputs for these. All we need is 5 of these. And, oh, we are missing some autocrafts. Okay, so we're going to actually have to go ahead and probably make a little bit of stuff to make these enrichment chambers first. So we're going to probably have to go ahead and just put 1 enrichment chamber down, just like this. Now that I think about it, we might not actually need the exact amount of this because we actually only probably need 1 of these for redstone and 1 of these for diamond. I don't think we're going to need 1 specifically for carbon. We might actually be able to get away with just carbon and another one. So maybe we'll just do 3 for now. I forgot to set the power on this thing. I was wondering why there was no power. So on the upside, we actually want to put an energy card in and extract. We're also going to want to put in some more of the overclockers. So let's get the card overclockers out. This should be probably fine. We can set this up to, wow, 100,000 RF per tick, which is good. It's probably fast enough. Don't think we're going to have any issues with that. And now all we have to do is add a plug. The plug is just going to provide power. Oh, wait, no, not plug, a point. Point is what we need. There we go. So now we hopefully should be getting some power. Oh, we have to link these. Right, so that's the reason this isn't working. We actually have to link this node to all the other nodes, like so. And that will then start, there we go. And now we have power in all of them. That's good. Okay, we are all set. I'm going to go ahead and set one of these to be redstone, just like that. And that should have dumped redstone, there we go, into this metallurgic infuser right here. That will actually just kind of fill it up a little more just to get us started. And in order to get the materials we need to make more enrichment chambers, we have to make some basic control circuits, and that's done by using osmium, like so. And there we go, we have basic control circuits. Now I want to set the output to be eject on, and the output is the bottom. So that should be then importing directly back into our system. And if we come to we can see we are getting basic control circuits back into our storage system. There we go, 10. Okay, great. And I make some more enrichment chambers now. Oh, we're missing the steel casing. Okay, that is something that we can make. I know we can make. We just had to set an auto craft up for it. The steel casing is a very common material we need to use in Mekanism, and it requires an osmium 4 steel and 4 of any glass. So we want to do exactly like that, just some normal glass, and we'll put that up there. Now we can come in here and make the enrichment chambers. Ejecting on, output the bottom, and we're going to input the top. Now they just need power as well, but because they only accept items from the top, we can actually just go ahead and run some normal cable back here. Lower tier cable's fine, the blazing tier is fine. We can just run that, and then we can just provide a point, and that should be fine. I don't think we need to do anything more complicated with laser IO for that, and these should all have power. Let's go ahead and set some auto crafts up for these enriched materials. So to make enriched carbon, we want to say, okay, send 1 coal and give us 1 carbon back. That's going to go to one of the enrichment chambers. The other one is going to be redstone. 1 redstone equals 1 enriched redstone, and the diamond one is going to be diamond to diamond. For now, I'm going to lump the coal and the obsidian one together. This requires a refined obsidian dust, which we don't actually have access to yet. We have to make this inside of the metallurgic infuser. And because these two are, it's required to be put through the diamond one first, we want to make sure that the enrichment chambers aren't trying to make the diamond and obsidian enrichment material at the same time, or we could run into a backlog. We're going to put the coal and obsidian in this one, the redstone in this one, and the diamond in this one. Now, of course, these are not hooked up, so we're going to have to put a cable like so. But we can come in here now and we can request, let's request 8 of the enriched redstone. That should hopefully, there we go, this machine is now running. Now, these are running very slow. We're going to be able to speed these up very soon, but just for a proof of concept, these are now enriching redstone into enriched redstone. And now finally, we now should have this thing set to export the enriched redstone, the enriched carbon, enriched diamond, and obsidian. So we can go ahead and put the coal one right here and the diamond one right here. Problem is that what we're having now is we need to be able to have both of these talk to each other, and this one to let it know when it needs more. So I actually, the way I'm going to do that is by coming into functional storage, we're going to go ahead and craft a downgrade. The item downgrade. There we go. This will only allow 64 items in each slot. That way we don't buffer a whole bunch of these items and use a bunch of items for no reason. Then the final step is to come to our ultra requester here and basically just request every single enriched item to give us an extra stack. Now, this one is set to 64 items for all of these. I don't know if I want to stack 64 of them and in the drawer, so maybe what we'll go ahead and do is we'll just go ahead and craft another requester, and we'll maybe set this requester to be a different amount. Maybe we'll set this one to be 16. things that we want to just kind of buffer in a little bit of, but not a lot. And then we can just go ahead and add all of the enriched items to our requester. And these are going to start, hopefully, telling the system that there aren't any in the system and it needs to make more. But because they're going to be automatically exported here, it's going to keep telling the system it needs more and more until all of these are completely filled up. And there's a stack of these in each. So we have a bit of a buffer. We have a bit of buffer to play with over here as well. So we should start to see the carbon coming in. This one is going to probably wait till this redstone is full, which is fine. The diamond one is also coming in, and we don't have the obsidian yet, but that's okay. It is pumping coal through here, but it's not pumping the redstone in. So I'm just going to double check to make sure we have everything coming in here okay. Okay, I figured out the issue I was having. Basically, the requesters actually only work, refined storage only lets you auto-craft one thing at a time on one requester. So the problem I was having was because I have all of them on one requester, it was trying to do all of them at the same time on that one. And so it was only letting through one at a time, which is also a problem I was having with the prediction matrices. I was having a problem because it was getting hung up on trying to craft the dry ice, and it was then not crafting enough of these prediction matrices to restock. So I have since remedied that. I'm probably going to move this fluid grid because it's kind of in a weird spot now. I might end up moving a couple of these onto this wall and stuff and start filling out the other walls. Now these are all going individually in parallel, so hopefully we should start to see these start to stock up back here. The diamond one is almost done, it looks like, and the redstone one is starting to fill in the other one here as well. Okay, so after some time that's passed here, I have all of these filled up. Their buffers are all filled up here, so we have this all ready to go. All that I have left to do now is I want to upgrade all of these machines to the highest tiers of the machines, and that's using the tier upgrades. Yep, tier installer. We have all 4 tiers of installers, which will make the machines more efficient and be able to process more than one item at a time. So I want to get all these guys effectively maxed out if I can. To do that, we have to be able to automate some of these basic resources, like the basic control circuit. Now that's going to be really easy now that we have all this set up, because all we have to do now is come in here. We can say, okay, let's go ahead and set a recipe. But in order to make this, we also need to have the basic control circuits auto-crafted. And that's going to be really straightforward. All we have to do is say one osmium is going to turn into one control circuit, which is true. Once we come over here, and we have to put this into one of these redstone machines. And I think I want to put it into this first one right here. So now we can go ahead and we can actually request tier installers straight up. After I, of course, put the crafting recipe into here, now we should be able to come in here and request, say, 10 of these. Which is going to be... oh, it's done already. I guess we didn't have to make any extra material, but all we have to do now is come here and just shift right-click on all these machines, and they just turn into the infusing factories. We want to keep auto sort on. That's what allows the items to be split evenly once they are inputted. So we want to make sure that that's always turned on so it is the most efficient. And we also need to make sure that we have ejecting on. So we want to basically, on all these, we want to input from the top and we want to output the bottom. As you can see, it's requesting some more coal because now that we've upgraded these, there's a higher buffer that it needs to fill. So it's going to go ahead and try and craft more and more of these, which is exactly what I want. The next tier of installer actually requires the advanced control circuits and the infused alloys. Now, this is another time when we have to use the infuser here to create more items. Now, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to set 1 iron equals to 1 of these infused alloys, and also going to set this recipe here. So we have basically this is all ready to go. And anything else we need auto-crafted in here? It doesn't look like it. Okay, let's put it in here, the second one, just so these can be running at different times. And we have the recipe all ready to go. Let's request 8 and see if we can get that started. Yep, and as you can hear, it is going ahead and doing what it needs to do. And we will actually add speed upgrades to these. All we're going to do in terms of upgrading these machines, we're going to want to upgrade these all the way to the max, and then we should be all set. To craft the speed upgrades that we're going to want to be using, it's just, we have to actually make some osmium dust. We're going to have to find a way to automate making the dust, and I think the best way we're going to be able to do that is potentially by using a crusher. We already have a crusher, which is very good. And we just basically need to set it up the same way. One thing I figured out, I was wondering how much these requesters were actually taking up in terms of energy. What I found is that all the creative items use no power at all. So that's actually really crazy. It's actually in our best interest to upgrade and to, if we can, make all of our importers and exporters the creative versions, because they don't actually cost any power. So that's going to put less of a stress on our overall system, but it's just good to keep in mind for down the road. If we do want to set up a lot of them, it might be better to set up the creative versions. Anyway, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to break this, throw on the importer just like so, and that should be all hooked up to power. Now we are going to actually have to run power to the back here. I don't think it'll be an issue. All we got to do is run the cable along the side and then just run some more blazing cable here. And let's go ahead and use a couple of these tier installers on the crusher as well. But yeah, so now we want to basically set a recipe for osmium dust. The way we're going to do that is we're just going to come in here, say osmium dust, find the crusher, and then just create it this way. So one ingot's going to turn into one dust, and then we go ahead and put it in the crusher. Therefore, it'll send one ingot, it'll be crushed down, and it will give us one dust back. So now that we've done that, we can go ahead and get the autocraft set up for the speed upgrades. These are very easy. We have all of them auto-crafted, ready to go. We also want to get the energy upgrades as well. I think these probably require a gold dust. Yeah, gold dust. So we're going to have to go ahead and make a recipe for gold dust. Each machine can hold 6 upgrades for speed and energy. Some of these energy upgrades have finished crafting. So I'll show you how to quickly throw these in. I probably have done it in the past, but I'll just go over it quickly again. In order to install these, you can actually just shift right click on these right like this, and that will go ahead and put them into the machine just like that. The alternative way is you can come into the upgrades section, grab your upgrades and put them in the slot in the top right, and that will input all of them into the machine. The elite ones require the elite control circuits, which is the exact same thing, but we do have to put the infused alloy into the diamond machine, which is totally fine. That's just, again, because we have it set up this way, it's very, very easy for us to just come in here and dump the appropriate crafting recipe into each one, and it'll just do the work for us. And just like that, we have 10 elite upgrades. All right, and for the final tier, we are going to need, this is when we're going to need to get the refined obsidian. To get refined obsidian, we have to get the enriched obsidian, which we do the same way in the enrichment chamber. But to get this dust, we have to send it into the metallurgic infuser, the obsidian dust. To get obsidian dust, we can actually get this a bunch of ways. But the way that I think we're going to do it is by enriching normal obsidian in the enrichment chamber, and that will give us 4 dust. The osmium compressor is only needed if you want to turn the refined obsidian dust into the ingots, which we will have to do, so we will set that up, I think. But right now, to get this ultimate tier, all we have to do is essentially get the enriched obsidian, which is just enriching the refined obsidian dust. And we should be building up our refined obsidian in here nice and quickly. So now we can go ahead and actually upgrade all of these to the ultimate tier already. But if we come in here and say, make us 10 of these, we have everything we need. For being such a high level craft, this really takes no time at all, which is really great. And we can upgrade these to the final tiers, and we are all done. These machines are finally fully upgraded. Now I will come in here quickly and make the osmium compressor. We do need this to make the ingots, so we're gonna have to find a way to get this thing some osmium. I guess I can just go ahead and make this one a laser node and then just extract from, I have my here, so I can just extract energy from this. And then we also just want to keep osmium stocked in here. So I think what we're going to do here is a similar thing we did to the thing we did over there. We're going to get ourselves one drawer out exporter, and then we are going to get a downgrade. And finally, we'll just break this, put the exporter on here, and set it to export osmium. And this should always keep stock. So now we say, extract from the downside and put it into the north side. There we go. Extra coming in the back. It is filling with osmium, and we are good to go. We'll just cover all this up here because we don't need to see all this. Awesome. So the first major part of Mekanism is taken care of. The next step here for Mekanism is to craft a couple more machines. We have to get the PRC, the pressurized reaction chamber, and we have to get the electrolytic separator. This is what lets us get hydrogen and oxygen separated out of water. And we need to use both of these for different purposes. So our end goal here is to get to the point where we're creating fissile fuel. This is what we need to use to burn in the fission reactors, and that actually is what allows us to get the nuclear waste. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we probably aren't going to want to do this recipe here. However, we can also do the isotopic centrifuge, which I will pin here. And that is basically a way we can turn uranium hexafluoride into fissile fuel. And then there's a bunch of crafting chains down here. I don't know if we're going to have enough space in here though. So I'm just going to set up a temporary room here just in the meanwhile as kind of a buffer room. It might have to increase in size, but I think this will be a good starting place. And I think what I'm going to do is actually work backwards. So I'm going to start with what I know I need. We're going to probably use a quantum entangleporter to transport the gas. That's also another item from Mekanism that's really handy. And I do want to have that on autocraft. I think we have pretty much everything else we need already on autocraft, just like so. We should only really need the one for now. We're going to need the one that we're going to end up putting it to eventually. But essentially, quantum entangleporters kind of act as ender chests for pretty much everything that you could possibly think of. I'm actually going to put this right here. You have to kind of set it up like a flux network. You kind of have to create a network. Two quantum entangleporters or multiple can be on the same frequency or network. So what I'm going to do is just set this to private. I'm going to create a name for this called fissile. So I know that this is now on the fissile fuel setting. By default, it can basically transfer everything. Items, fluids, gases, infuses, pigments, slurries, energy, heat. It's actually wild how much you can transfer through here. But all we're interested in transferring right now is the gas. So we're going to have a tank sitting on top of here that's holding our fissile fuel. So we want to say that we want to input our gas from the top, just like so. And that's the only setting we actually need this on. It doesn't actually require any power to function. It just acts as kind of a wormhole almost, which is really cool. Now we are going to need a tank. So we're probably going to want to make the ultimate tank just because that's just going to give us a nice little buffer for fissile fuel. I had that to autocraft, so that's going to be all good. And we'll sit him on top like that. I will go ahead and make also the Mekanism pipes on autocraft. All these pipes are really good to get automated because they are quite effective at what they do. And we are going to want them probably later for the reactors and such. And they're not too expensive once you have all of this on autocraft. So there's the pipes, there's the logistical transporters, which are the ones that you use for items. That's how you transport items around. Cables, which are the power pipes, which are really good. The pressurized tube, that's what they're called. Okay. And these are what you use to transport gas around. Okay, so fissile fuel is made by using an isotropic centrifuge to turn this into this. Uranium hexafluoride into fissile fuel. So we only need one of these isotropic centrifuge. We can actually put this right beside here, I think, because it should... Oh, it does require power. I'm probably going to route power underground here. Now, I don't know where I want this point sitting yet, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it right here. And we'll just have it powering like so. So next, we need a chemical infuser. I'm not going to make this super compact back here because I do want to see what's going on. And that's going to sit right here. We want the output of the gas to be the front, like so. And we have two inputs, one from the left and one from the right, which is fine. Again, we're going to have to run power to it. Next, we have to split into two different paths, the hydrofluoric acid and the uranium oxide. Uranium oxide actually is quite simple. It requires an enrichment chamber and yellow cake. You send uranium into an enrichment chamber to get the yellow cake uranium. Now, the uranium itself, do I have any in the system? I do not. So we're going to have to go ahead and make some uranium seeds. Now, I do need to get power to this somehow, and also refine storage cabling. Maybe I'll just go ahead and do this like so. That'll get power, and then we know that we want to extract this gas out the top, like so. And we want to input items in the bottom. So now if we come over here and run our refined storage, and we want to export yellow cake uranium, that is in fact working quite well. And we're going to pipe out of the top of this into here. Just be a matter of attaching them like so. And we have the uranium oxide. I hope that that actually doesn't cause an issue where this has to be coming into the other side. If so, we're going to have to then flip this thing around. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's just flip that around. We want this to be... does this thing keep its inventory? Oh, it does. I believe Mechanism has something called a dropper to help take things out. Is that the case? There we go. And we can then shift right click to empty the dropper. So that just helps clear out items like this. And we can put this back down like here, and that should go into the right slot now. Perfect. Now we do want to get hydrofluoric acid into the other side. Now this one requires a chemical dissolution chamber, and this is what we're going to use to create the hydrofluoric acid. So we're going to put this thing right, we'll put this thing right here. We want to basically extract all the gases out the left, like so. And we want our items coming in as well, because we need fluoride. Now, fluoride, that's another one that we're actually going to need some seeds for. So I'm going to have to go ahead and get this all set up again. The chemical dissolution chamber, again, needs to have fluorite as the extract from the system. Now that we have that all set up, we're going to increase the speed, and then we should be able to just hook this back into our refined storage, and that will then auto output. If I have items set to input on the bottom, there we go, we have that all set. And then we want to set the gas output to the left, which means that we need to have a pressurized tube right here. I do have to run power here somehow. We're going to go ahead and maybe just put a point on top for now, just because it makes it a little cleaner. And we have plenty of around and available. So we have gas, we have power here, all good to go. Now we got to make sulfuric acid using a chemical infuser to add sulfur trioxide and water vapor. Let's go ahead and put another chemical infuser down to make the sulfuric acid. Because I have most of these on AutoCraft now, we can easily come in here and request one, and should be good to go like that. Let's go ahead and put this down. I'm going to probably have to start snaking this around a little, but let's go ahead and put down this one right here. We want to then set the gas extract or output to the left, and then we should have a couple of ways we can run power here. We can basically run power on top, just like so. We already have power, and we need to now input water vapor and sulfur trioxide. The water vapor is easiest because it's just a matter of decondensating water, and we can get infinite water from a sink. There we go. Okay, and for this one, we want to eject gas pretty much everywhere. So we're just going to do that. And now we want to just pull in water from this. Now, I'm not 100% sure if I need to pipe this in, but I figure I already have some pipes here. The ultimate mechanical pipe. We'll just make a couple of these, and we'll just pipe it right in from the water source. I haven't had to use a configurator yet. These do say that they can have power, but they don't actually require any power to do the normal configurations, so that's not required. It is auto-charging because of my flux networks, though. But essentially, I just have to give this thing some power here. The cable here, and that should start to work. There we go. You have to toggle the operation back and forth sometimes. If you want to go from water back to vapor, you have to make sure that this is toggled to the correct direction. But now this should be hopefully filling up with water vapor. Yeah, it is. Nice. Very slowly, but we can speed that up. And that's the easy part here. Now we get into the harder part of this, which is getting the sulfur trioxide. And that requires another chemical infuser. I'm just doing these kind of machine by machine, so it's just easier to follow along. I hope it's not too slow paced, but if people want to follow this kind of step by step, this is how I'm doing it. And we're still working with gases here, so we want to have the gases from the back be red. Perfect. And we want the output of this to come out the front. So gases, output front, perfect. And this is going to be inputting from the left and right again, which is fine. This requires oxygen as an input and sulfur dioxide. The oxygen we're actually going to get from electrolytic separator. That's right. So we're going to put an electrolytic separator right here. Maybe we'll have to make it the opposite direction. So setting like this. And then that way it will be pumping out the back. So now we can set up an electrolytic separator. So for the electrolytic separator, this thing needs some power, which is easy to do. This also needs to be pumping in water. Is the main thing it requires, and this will start to make hydrogen and oxygen. Now we only want the oxygen to be sent out of here. We might be able to take an output from the bottom as well, though, because we do probably need some of that hydrogen at some point. And we want to set both of these to dumping excess, so just so that if one fills up, the other doesn't stop producing. So we want to turn off auto eject. Let's set it to the cyan, and that should auto eject now oxygen right into this side. I think that's correct. That's the right side for oxygen. Right. Okay. Yeah. And all these machines are super loud, so we're just going to type in mechanism and pretty much muffle everything. So that's very, very annoying. Nice. So we are almost at this point where we have sulfur trioxide. We just need sulfur dioxide now, which requires a chemical oxidizer to accept sulfur dust. Now, how much sulfur do we have? Not a lot. We can get sulfur dust by using the sulfur essence from Mystical. That's probably our best bet. We can PRC charcoal to get sulfur, which I guess is the way they probably intend you to do it, but I think the best way would just be to use sulfur dust and then just input the bottom. I think that's what we're gonna do. Not on this machine. That would be on the next machine, because we need to go from here to sulfur dioxide. Let's go pressurized tube, and this is where we're mixing oxygen here. So we need to now pipe in sulfur dioxide using a chemical oxidizer once again. Let's go ahead and get an oxidizer out of here. There we go. We're outputting on the back, and we just need to now input items from the bottom, which is all good to go already. And then we should be all set. Okay, so now that we have the fluorite coming in, we need to now extract the fluorite right into this oxidizer. And we need to get sulfur. That should be creating what we need. We don't have any power though, which we can resolve by just running power like this. And that should be making trioxide, hydrofluoric acid, which is making uranium hexafluoride. And this is building up right here. So yeah, I'm thinking this needs to be changing its gas setting. We're going to input from like that, and that should be making fissile fuel, and we are actually creating fissile fuel. That's actually not a terrible setup. I thought it was going to be a little bigger than that, so that actually I can get away with making this room a little smaller now. We can go ahead and speed up all of these processes, which is fine. You know what? This is actually not required. This is actually such a huge buffer to begin with. I think it's probably going to be enough. So we might even just use the actual entangloporter itself as the buffer. There we go. So now we're building up fissile fuel. Yeah, over 2,000 millibuckets. And now I'm going to go ahead and get all of this sped up with some speed upgrades. Okay, so I have all of this sped up really fast. It's using the sulfur dust quite quickly. I'm thinking that might end up being our bottleneck is the sulfur production. So if we want to keep this thing running, but I really don't think we're going to need to run it at max speed all the time. I just don't think that's going to be required for this machine. So yeah, I think this is probably fine, and we should have quite a buffer. Wow, we have 91,000 millibuckets. Wow, this thing was flying. Okay, so now we're literally just limited now by our speed of sulfur. But yeah, fissile fuel is fully automated now, which means that we are absolutely ready to hopefully dive into the reactors. And it's not the prettiest setup in the world. The radioactive one. Can I put that right above here? Cool. There we go. So we have ourselves some radioactive hazard. It's not really radioactive, but we're going to be using it for something radioactive. So essentially it is meant for that. So we've gone ahead and done quite a bit of mechanism. It's been probably quite a brainful. It's probably been quite an episode just of trying to get your brain around all of what we've been doing. But I hope that it's not been too much for everybody. I hope you've all been able to follow along with with my thought process, even if it is a little bit all over the place sometimes. But essentially, we are all set to dive into the kind of endgame part of Mekanism, which is the reactors, and then into the antimatter production. But the last thing that I want to look at doing in this episode, and I know it's going to seem like a bit of a stretch, I do want to get ourselves an induction matrix set up. What we need to actually create this is some induction casings and induction port. These are actually really easy. This is just some steel, some extra resources here, and just some of these controllers, which for the ports, which isn't a problem. The issue is when we start getting into the actual meat of this induction matrix, which is the induction cells. These are what we need to actually use to store energy, and as you can see, the capacity of one basic induction cell is 3.2 giga FE, or I think that's what it stands for. I think that's billion, and then it goes up from there. We can get even into the trillion FE per per each of these induction cells, which is an actually insane amount of energy storage. So that is the goal, to get to these ones. However, we don't have a couple of resources that we need, and that is the lithium dust. Unfortunately, there is only really one way to get this. We can't use mystical agriculture as a quick, cheaty way to get it. We actually do need to set up the proper setup using Mekanism. In order to get the lithium, we have to crystallize the lithium gas, which we get from the liquid lithium. And to get liquid lithium, we have to get brine from a thermal evaporation controller. These thermal evaporation plants are intended to be done outside, where you pump them full of water, and using some energy and sunlight, it actually heats them up and turns it from water into brine. However, we don't want to do it outside. We want to do it in the basement because we like to be hermits down here and we don't like seeing the sun. So there is another alternative, and that comes in the form of something called the resistive heater. This is a block from Mekanism that allows you to actually create heat using Fe. So we can essentially keep this inside and use these instead to heat up our brine. We need to get the thermal evaporation controller, some valves, and the blocks. And we want to put all of these on autocraft because we're going to need quite a few of these. I'm thinking what we do is we just instead take this side over here and make this our brine production area. Okay, so I've gotten enough room in here for this thing. This should be a valid thermal evaporation plant, but I do need to be able to put some ports in. So thinking we just dig out the sides, we just got to fill in these gaps. I think that will be a valid structure. So let's go ahead and now grab ourselves a sink. We need to throw a couple of ports on this thing. So let's go ahead and just take out this wall here and put in 2 ports here. One of these will be for water. And all we have to do here is just take some pipe, pump directly out of a sink into there, and it should autofill water. Perfect. And the other thing we have to do now is get lithium after we have the brine. So we have to then turn the liquid lithium into lithium from the deconcentrator. And then once it is lithium, we send it into the chemical crystallizer. Let's grab ourselves one resistive heater, and we're going to need a point for some energy. Perfect. Okay, so heat pipe, resistive heater, just like so. We're going to take the heat from the top and we're going to put this thing in. And as you can see, it's using currently 40 Fe per tick, but we don't have any power on this thing, so let's give it power. So it'll then essentially heat up to whatever we set it. So we can actually say how much Fe we want to use. Say we do, like, 500 Fe per tick. That will increase the amount of heat that this resistive heater will provide, which will in turn increase the production of brine. As you can see here, our production is going up steadily, which means that we should hopefully be seeing... Perfect. We have no power here, which is a problem. Oh, we have to take this brine and run this into another... That's correct. That's right. I forgot about that. Ugh. Okay, hold on. And this is starting to produce brine. Is good. We now need to put the brine from here into... Now we want to take this and run this all the way over to the output here, or to the input here, which will then be... We'll be inputting brine into this next machine, the liquid lithium. So there we go. So this is filling up here. This is what we're going to want to put into the rotary condensator. Okay, let's put this rotary condensator here. This should start to turn the liquid lithium into normal lithium. There's always a llama here. Okay, so we have this all hooked up properly. We just need to now get ourselves some speed upgrades into this thing. Here we go. We have lithium being produced at a good rate. We can go ahead and let this thing build up a little bit, but I want to add the autocraft recipes right now for the induction matrix stuff. The induction casing, super easy. Induction port, very easy as well. The hard part is where we get to these, the induction cells. So I want to get as high tier induction cells we can. And the way that we do this is we just have to craft the previous tiers of cell and the energy cube associated with it. So the associated energy cube and then the induction cell. Go up a tier, we have to do the same thing, which requires the previous tier and then also the new tier as well. And because every single higher tier induction cell requires 4 of the previous tier, the high ones get very, very expensive very quickly. But I'm going to go ahead and make all these autocrafts recipes set up, and then we can see if we have enough resources to craft the highest tier induction cell. So I'm going to go ahead and throw all these in here, and that should mean that we can craft hopefully one of these. Okay, so we're missing a little bit of lithium, but everything else is seemingly good to go. We also are going to need to make auto crafts for the providers. How this works is the induction cells are what you need to put into the multi-block to store the power, and the providers are what we actually need to extract and put power in. So whatever the amount it says here is, that's the rate at which you can take power out of this thing. So we can take 52.42 million FE per tick per induction provider. So if we have multiples of these, we can take it out very, very fast. Because the antimatter requires about 200 million FE per tick, we might actually want about 4 of these total in order to produce 1 antimatter. We're going to need some of these. Let's go ahead and make a bunch of induction casings. And then we're going to probably need at least 2 of the ports. Can we make ourselves 1 ultimate induction cell? We can. Awesome. Okay. This is going to be awesome. We're going to have a lot of storage here for power. Basically how we can do it is we just do all the walls like so. Floor and the ceiling like this. There it is, the ultimate induction cell. Also, I think we can use structural glass from Mekanism to kind of act as a replacement for induction casing. So I'm going to go and put a induction port on the bottom here. 1, 2. And then I want to put glass here. Does that count as a... Oh, I don't have a induction cell in there. And now we do that. It does count. Very cool. So we can actually kind of see inside, which is really neat. But as you can see, we have a 1.6 trillion FE storage energy matrix now. As we can see down here, we have our 2 induction ports. Now we want one of these to be input. We can change like this. So the green means it's input and the red means output. So we want basically all the power for our entire system. We want to come into our mains casing and then come out of here. So in order to do that, we have to go ahead and make a little bit of a change to our network now. If we put this onto my normal network, we can just change the name of the network to power out. And that way, all the things that are currently connected to this will not like disconnect, which is going to be very handy. So now this is connected to power out. We want to bypass the limit of the transfer limit because we are going to have a higher limit using the output of this. So I'm going to have a point here, and I'm going to have this point be something on a new network. We want to add a new network, and this one's going to be called power in. I'm going to set this to green network, private. So now this is giving us, this is going to put power into the system, and this is going to take power out of the system, which means that our current plugs that are on our reactors over here, I got to get back and get these now. These are currently on the power out setting. We want them to go to the power in setting. But before we do that, we have to first craft a induction provider. Okay, so we're going to put this induction provider right here. And now we should have a completed cell that lets us input and output. Let's see, we have 1 provider, 1 cell. Yes, that's perfect. Input, output, 52.42 million FE per tick. That is totally fine right now. And I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this really quick. I don't want to lose power on all of our machines. Let's go ahead and put power in. As you can see, we have an output because this is keeping everything else in the base charged nice and easily here, which is good. But it's also increasing the amount of energy it's getting, and it's storing it in here. Yeah, we have about 700,000 FE input, kilo FE input, and about, I don't know, maybe an average of 100,000 out. So our power situation is actually looking really good right now, until we get to the point where we have to start making antimatter, in which case we are going to be completely out of power. But anyways, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I'm going to end it here. It's been a long episode. Again, thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you did like it, please leave a like. Feel free to comment. I hope you all have a good one. Bye.